I would ask you this week certainly to be in prayer and reflection for next week. Or next Sunday. And by the way, in the back of the Seek booklet, there's a devotion that you can read in preparation for the message and the theme for next week, which will be the message and theme of joy. Joy with a capital J. And we're going to talk a little bit about joy in the coming minutes now in this sermon, and it's going to be based on a text that at the beginning you don't hear much joy in. It's about a rich man. And speaking of rich people, I started thinking about where rich people can live. And here are three of the top places for rich people to live. Here's one rich person's house. It has 19 bedrooms, a movie theater, and a bowling alley. This has 29 bedrooms, a $150,000 hot tub, and a bowling alley. This has 123 rooms, an indoor skating rink, and a bowling alley. Hence, if you want to be rich, take up bowling. Funny, the people I bowl with on Thursday nights don't exactly live in those houses, along with the rest of us. But whether or not you live in a mansion with a bowling alley, and I'm sure people who live there are very generous people. But regardless whether you live in a mansion with a bowling alley or if you live in a studio apartment by a bowling alley, you can, regardless, be inflicted with the same disease. And it's a disease that probably you have, and it's a disease I know that I have. It is this, that our happiness sometimes, somehow, in some fashion, gets intrinsically, intimately connected with our stuff. I have never heard a toddler in my life say, "Oh no, take the toy, it's yours." We're born with mine because we know mine makes us happy, at least for a moment. So with that in mind, with that intrinsic connection we have between our heart and our stuff, please hear now the amazing words of Jesus. And in honor of the gospel, would you please stand?
Then Jesus said to them, "Watch out, guard yourself against all kinds of greed. After all, one's life isn't determined by one's possessions, even when someone is very wealthy." Then he told them a parable. A certain rich man's land produced a bountiful crop. He said to himself, "What will I do? I have no place to store my harvest." Then he thought, "Here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. That's where I'll store all my grain and goods. I'll say to myself, 'You have stored up plenty of goods, enough for several years. Take it easy. Eat, drink, enjoy yourself.' But God said to him, 'Fool, tonight you will die. Now who will get the things you have prepared for yourself?' This is the way it will be for those who hoard things for themselves and aren't rich towards God." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Therefore I say to you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, or what you'll wear. There is more to life than food, and more to the body than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither plant nor harvest. They have no silo or barn, yet God feeds them. You are worth so much more than birds. Who amongst you, by worrying, can add one single moment to your life? If you can't do such a small thing, why worry about the rest? Notice how the lilies grow. They don't wear themselves out with work, and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon, in all his splendor, wasn't dressed like one of these. If God dresses grass in the field so beautifully, even though it's alive today and tomorrow it's thrown into the furnace, how much more will God do for you, you people of weak faith? Don't chase after what you will eat and what you will drink. Stop worrying. All the nations of the world long for these things. Your Father knows that you need them. Instead, desire his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Don't be afraid, little flock, because your Father delights in giving you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to those in need. Make for yourselves wallets that don't wear out, a treasure in heaven that never runs out. No thief comes near there, and no moth destroys. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be too. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated.
And so there was a rich man. Nothing wrong with the way that starts. Read it. Here it is. That there was a man who had a bountiful crop. What will I do? I have no place to store my harvest. He did what you needed to do, correct? Duh. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. That's where I'll store all my grains and goods. That makes a lot of sense. Any businessman, businesswoman would do the exact same thing because you just keep growing. No one has started a business saying, gee, maybe I'll fail. No, you want to grow and expand. On the surface, we would all agree with that. However, Jesus, as only Jesus could, used this story to show what was underneath. Listen to this. He says this. Jesus goes ahead. The rich man says to himself, you have stored up plenty of goods, enough for everything. I can say now for several years, I can take it easy, I can eat, I can drink, I can enjoy myself. But God said to him, fool, tonight you will die. Now who will get the things you have prepared for yourself? This is the way it will be for those who hoard things for themselves and aren't rich toward God. What was behind that probably arrogant appearance of the businessman was one word: fear. He was afraid. Worst thing in the world was to run out of money, because he knew that money could buy him happiness and security. I can sit back and relax. That was his goal, because supply and demand, there's only so much supply. So he's going to get his share of it, more than his share, to take care of himself and his own. It's sort of like that Tom Hanks movie that's out with Inferno. This mad scientist is concerned that there's a limited supply of resources and there's an overpopulation. Take care of the overpopulation. Wipe it out with a nicely placed plague. Then you can have all that you need of the supply. The rich man's tactic: do whatever it takes to keep on getting, because that's where it's at. No one is going to take care of yourself but yourself. Or, as the Bible does not say, God takes care of those who takes care of themselves. No. It's fear that drives that man. It's fear that drives us. I want you to see the similarity between this rich man and the man now who's about to occupy that chair.
Hey, I saw your car outside. What are you doing home so early?
I took the afternoon off.
What is all of this?
This is the horns of a dilemma, Allie. We are in the horns of a dilemma.
What? What horns? What dilemma? Is that my eyeliner pencil?
Yeah, sorry, thanks. I couldn't find a pen. So look, you know that guy they hired to come by, that professional retirement specialist, came by my office today.
I thought you weren't going to waste your time with that.
Well, I wasn't, but I did. Man, what an eye-opener.
Eye-opener. Very funny. Okay, sorry. What did he have to say?
Well, you know, first he was just kind of talking accounting mumbo-jumbo, you know, talking about tax shelters, diversification, things like that. I missed half of it. But then he walked me through this assessment chart, which is supposed to gauge how we're doing. And Allie, sit down. Okay, good. So the first thing, he asked me to paint a picture of our ideal retirement. And I tell him, we want a little place by the beach, maybe a little golf cart to putt around in, things like that. So he does his calculations, and he says that to reach our goal, by this point, we should have investments that are worth approximately that.
And that's not where we're at?
Not where we're at. We're not even in the same zip code.
Ooh.
And then he says he'd be happy to help me go over my portfolio. I told him, we don't have a portfolio. We don't even have a manila folder. So that's when I decided to come home and assess our assets. All right, so look, I added them all up. I took our pension stuff, our savings, that one IRA we did that 1 year. So there we are.
Wow, the numbers are so much more vivid when they're written in eyeliner.
And what do they add up to?
Well, less than this, I'm guessing.
Yeah, not less than, way less than. Allie, we have got to do something, and fast, or we can kiss our dreams of a preferred retirement goodbye. That's what they call it now, preferred retirement.
Okay, so we dropped the golf cart. We can work on it.
Hey, work on it. That's what I've been doing all afternoon. That's what all this is. We have got to get creative. We have to liquidate some assets and find a way to bump ourselves up till we can get to where we need to be. So, I made a list of ideas.
Ideas, catchy title. Number 1, garage sale. That's your idea of bumping us up? We're going to sell the mini trampoline for $40,000?
Look, it's a start. Just read it. There's some other good things up in the attic.
Exercise equipment, albums. Wedding dress, Patrick.
Honey, look, it just sits up there in that hermetically sealed baggy thing. And look, I found an old savings bond from Aunt Myra, and oh, look at this.
Your baseball cards.
Hey, I got a lot of good old ones in here. Look, here's a Pee Wee Reese. It's a little bent up from the bicycle spokes, but it ought to be worth something.
Honey, this list. Old savings bonds and baseball cards and the plasma bank?
Hey, they are paying $20 a pop for giving plasma down there.
You are not
No,
suggesting.
I figure, look, we both go down every couple of weeks between us. That's $40 times 15
Patrick,
years.
Patrick,
What?
honey, you are just a little panic-stricken. Maybe it's time to take a step back and think through things. Being rich in retirement should not be the biggest pursuit of our lives. There are more important things. And realistically, if you added together all the items on this list, they may not even come up to $1,000.
I know, you're right. It's pointless. We're never going to get the golf cart. We're never going to get our preferred retirement. At this rate, I'm probably never going to be able to retire at all.
Oh, don't be silly. We'll figure something out. We'll find some. Hey, now here's something of real value. It's your Grandpa Riley's old Bible.
Really? You think so? What do you think we can get for it?
Not value in dollars, value in memories. I mean, just look through. Well, look, he wrote some dates here. This Bible presented to Daniel Patrick Riley, born February 2nd, 1908, baptized July 13th, 1922, married Miss Emily McGinnis, April 20th, 1929. That is so sweet. I wish I'd known him better.
Yeah, good old Grandpa Riley. He always steered us in the right direction.
Oh, and look. He wrote something else here. Life verse, Matthew 6:19-21. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moths and rust corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust corrupt, and where thieves do not break through or steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Matthew 6, that sounds familiar, I think. Yeah, look. He wrote that same reference under where he signed his name, Matthew 6, 19 to 21.
Well, that's kind of weird.
Well, it's kind of appropriate right at the moment, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess. Hey, let me see that. Matthew 6, 19 to 21. 6, 19, 21. Yes! Thank you, Grandpa.
Where are you going?
Well, I'm listening to Grandpa Riley. Matthew 6, 19, and 21. Don't you get it?
No.
The Pick 3 Lotto is paying $50,000 right now. Grandpa just gave me my numbers. Good old Grandpa Riley always steered us in the right direction. You just watch. We're going to get that golf cart yet. We're in the money. We're in the money.
Six, 19, 21. If you hit it, come and confess to me. But how many of us have really sat in a chair like this with worry? Every one of us, haven't we? Every one of us. Is a 401k sufficiently funded? What about the kids' college? What about the health fund? What about? It is so natural. And that's what Jesus was getting at with that exaggerated story, and that's what Jesus did with his parables. He always used exaggeration. This rich man who was so consumed about that supply and demand and getting enough to supply. And no sooner does he run that into the wall with, "Fool, your soul is required of you right now, and what do you have to show for it? Nothing but barns with stuff in them." No sooner does he run that dead into the wall than he stops, he backs up the car, and he goes at a 90-degree angle. And his listeners would have been shocked because he follows that parable of the foolish rich man by saying this: "Look at the birds of the air." God enables them to have the magic of flight, the beauty of plumage and of songs that greet the morning sun. Just look at how my Father takes care of them. Or look at the flowers of the field. All they do is just wait for the warmth of the sun to pull them open into praising the Creator. Look at the birds. Look at the flowers. My God is your Creator, your loving parent more than anyone you'll ever understand. It is the joy to give you the kingdom. That's what Jesus goes ahead to say. He says this: your Father knows what you need. Your Father knows about the pension. Your Father knows all of that stuff. But instead, desire His kingdom, and these things will be given you as well. Don't be afraid, little flock. And that passage that you see there, underline the word instead. Instead of doing all of that stuff, instead of building all the bigger barns, it's going to be faith in a different way. Adjust your priorities to be in line with what God wants. Faith isn't just, let's think nice things. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, etc., etc. Faith is trusting that in God's passion, in God's desires, in the values and the goals of God's kingdom, and all of those things, that is where you will find happiness. That is where you will find joy that will not rust out and will not wear out. That's it. When you have faith that God's kingdom, God's desire is where your treasure really is. That means that God's desire for that family on the other side of the world, God's desire is for that family to have a just, fair, sustainable wage. God's desire is for that child in the inner city of St. Louis to have a birthday party with a beautiful birthday cake. God's passion and desire is for a family in Mozambique to have running water in their village. God's desire is that that widow standing by the grave of her husband of 57 years will have someone to stand beside her, putting an arm around her shoulder. God's desire is that a second grade Sunday school student, little face will shine when someone reads a Bible story to her for the first time. God's desire, God's passion is to see little Christopher grow up in the faith and to be a young man who can be a witness for Christ. God's desire is for the immigrant not to be discriminated against, but to be able to be accepted as he or she is, just as we, as strangers as we are, may be accepted for who we are, one with the other. God's desire is all of that. And when we can move our vision to get a glimpse of God's vision, everything changes. A while back I asked for stories about generosity and how you were affected by it. I loved what one person sent me. She emailed me and said, I invest my time making book bags for Mozambique and knitting prayer shawls. I use my talents to lead a Bible study and lay reading. I thank God for these talents. I invest in the kingdom by financially supporting my church. It provides me with the spiritual nourishment I need, and I want it to be there for future generations. Wow. This is a rich woman. I don't know her bank account, but she is wealthy with treasure that only compounds in interest every second. She knows what joy is because she's aligned herself with God's desire. Can you do that? Can I do that? It is a tension. It is a stressful thing because we're part of a materialistic culture and we will always be pulled between all the ledger sheets and the Christ who said, look at the birds, look at the flowers. That's probably why Christ gave us an exercise in that very passage. He said this, sell your possessions, give to the needy, make for yourselves wallets that don't wear out, a treasure in heaven that never runs out. Now, when Jesus said this, he's not saying become homeless. Of course not. But he is saying just practice, and maybe even in a small way, practice loosening your grip on your stuff. Practice. My family and I, we were forced to practice this a few years ago, actually. We had moved in our former church had a larger parsonage that we moved into, and of course it is a sin not to have every room full of furniture. We all know that's in the Bible somewhere. So of course we filled up the larger house with stuff. When we moved out to West County in 2010, the house that we liked was a smaller house, and so we had this stuff. What do you do with the stuff? We had a moving sale, the Great American Way. We did that, but we still had stuff. So I rented a 10 by 15 storage unit at Public Storage at the corner of Barrett Station and Manchester Road. I recall it was, I think, like $70 a month or so to store our stuff. Fit quite nicely in that unit. Every month I'd pay $70 or so. And then, after a few months, it was raised to something, maybe 80 or whatever. Well, that's my stuff over there. I kept paying for my stuff. And then they raised it again to something. I just kept paying until one day it struck me. I don't even recall what's in it. Why am I continuing to pay for stuff that at one time we can't live without? And probably in the process we spent hundreds, if not maybe a couple of thousands of dollars, money that could have gone for that well in Mozambique, money that could have been used here in all sorts of ways. But I had to have my stuff. And so we took care of our stuff in two ways. One way, let it be sufficient to say that we now have a 1.5 car garage. we still have a foot over here, you understand. But the other was we got rid of some of the bigger stuff and we took it to St. Vincent de Paul. One was a combination air hockey ping pong table. And as I gave it away, it struck me, some other family's going to use this, and it's not just gathering dust. Someone's going to use it as a bonding thing for a family somewhere. It felt good to give it away. And that's what Jesus is talking about. Sell your possessions, not everything, just give it away. Lighten it up. See what happens and see how you feel. So that's an exercise I want to give to you. Now, last week, I gave you an exercise about putting a smile on someone's face with a surprising act of generosity. Just surprise them by doing something. I got a couple of stories back from you. I appreciate that, but I would like more stories. I'd like you to email me what you did. And if you haven't done anything, go and do it this week. I didn't want to be a hypocrite, so my wife and I did that Friday. We went out to breakfast and saw a few booths down, so we picked up their tab anonymously. When the waiter came for the time for that couple and said that it had been paid, I heard the woman say, "Ah, why, that is so sweet. Thank you so much." And made me feel good. It was sweeter than the pancakes, made me feel good. And then we looked at the couple, and they went out, and they got into a truck that had Iowa license plates. And I just know that they left that restaurant and they went up to Iowa and they told everybody about how wonderful Missouri people were. Well, maybe we're wonderful, but for sure Christians are. Because Christians have been given things abundantly that put smiles on our faces. This thing called grace and compassion and love and joy. And whenever we can share it, even through something as silly as picking up a tab, we are putting a smile on God's face because God put a smile on our face. So what I'd like you to do this week, take a survey of your home. Go around. There might be a piece of furniture, there might be an appliance, there might be some clothes, there might be some books, who knows what. But bundle whatever it is up and take, if it's a bike, by all means, go to our bike rehab ministry, but take it to St. Vincent de Paul or Goodwill, or maybe Kingdom House has a use for it. Who knows? Maybe one of the women's shelters. But take it away. Take it out of your house, get rid of it for a good cause, and then don't do anything to fill up that space. Whenever you see that empty space for the next few days, weeks, months, whenever, remember, what you did was unclutter your heart to make room for greater treasure. For where your treasure is, truly, there will be the abundance of joy in your heart. Actually, it's a quite simple thing.